I want to talk a little bit about quality. You mentioned earlier you've been here since 1987. I think in that time you've worn some different hats. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your focus has been and then kind of how that's shifted in recent years and where that passion for quality comes from. And let's talk a little bit about what we do at Tiffin to drive quality.
First 10 years being here was answering the phone. It was taking parts orders. And then probably in the late 90s, got interested in the product development stage of the business. And so, that's a lot different. It's just a whole different concept. You got to be creative. You got to come up with ideas. You got to find out what the customer's wants and desires are for the product, how it should look, how it should feel and function, and those type of things. And so, we've developed those products, but early on, I realized that you can design things that are impossible to build, that are impossible to install. So that was my first hint toward the quality side of it. How can you make it where somebody can actually fabricate this item and install it and be successful at it? So that, we got into a lot of that. And so I did the product development side of the business for, I don't know, another 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. It's, there's so many stages and development times. But the last several years, I've left the product development side of the business and worked solely in manufacturing. And, the entire day for me is absolutely unrelenting working on quality and how to improve it. And I've learned a lot. I mean, when you walk into somebody's factory or when you walk into a motorhome, there's absolutely no way to determine the quality that manufacturing group is putting out. And there's no way to determine the quality of that product without becoming extremely intimate and knowledgeable about it. So, the last several years, I spend my entire day in the motorhomes. I actually do repairs all day. And putting my hands on the product, starting from the front and going to the back. You realize that with the hands-on work, there are things that we've done in the past that may not be the right way to do them. And there's things that we need to do differently to improve the quality of the product. And it's just been the most eye-opening thing that I've experienced in my time here, especially from going for the other stages of the business. And then everybody's concerned about quality.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to talk a good game about quality. But it's a different ballgame doing it. And when I was doing design, I'd wonder, well, why can't we get this? Why can't we get this right? Well, it's deeper than that. It's obviously we can design it to where it can be installed and fabricated easy. But the quality side of anything goes way beyond what's on the surface. And it takes years and it takes an unrelenting effort.
Yeah.
And once you address any quality problem and you think you have it solved, well, think again. Because if it ever was a problem to start with, it'll be a problem again. And so many things are really hard to put to bed in the manufacturing industry, especially when you're not dealing with robotics. Okay, very few robotics. We have some CNC equipment. We have CNC routers, lasers, those type of things. But, there's no robots in building motorhomes. And we could go real deep into why there's not. But so it's hand built. And you're going to have different people doing different jobs. And so quality is never ending. Once you solve the problem, you have to continuously be aware of it.
So if memory serves me correctly, it was about 3 years ago, give or take, sometime in the midst of our kind of peak of the COVID challenges, a lot of supply chain issues. Just the whole world was tough when it came to building motorhome. About that time is when you dove headfirst into quality. Talk to me a little bit about kind of what propelled you in that direction, and then a little more about what a typical day looks like for you in that role.
Well, the thing that propelled me into that direction is that the manufacturing process during that time became chaotic. And I think it became chaotic for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, the entire supply chain, the global supply chain became chaotic.
Yeah.
Well, then when you're trying to run a manufacturing business and you don't have parts and you're improvising and you're trying to figure out where to get parts and you're substituting parts, and then you're building products that are not finished, and no different than Ford and Toyota and everybody else, you know, they were parking big yards of cars that had, or maybe missing radios and maybe seating or whatever. Well, we had the same problem. And then when you put that out into the field, or not in the field, but out into the yard, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what's this one missing? Well, nobody had the processes. We didn't have a process for this.
Never experienced
it. It was, everybody got blindsided. And so it got really chaotic. And I think the whole process got confusing. And so it just got, you know, the wheels kind of came off of it. And I think it came off for everybody. And so I got interested in, you know, hey, we got to get a process. We got to figure out how to get these units completed, how to get them checked out. And that's where I kind of got into it. And as I got into it, it kind of felt natural. I don't know why, but I was out on the assembly line and I was going in and out of units and I was seeing things that we were doing and I was seeing things I didn't think were right. Some things were right. But then I thought, well, you know, if we did this, that, or the other, that would be an improvement. And then as I started doing that, I saw opportunities in other areas, such as the final PDI and the final finish lines and such. And so I got involved in those processes. And to this very day, I'm still involved in the final PDI process. And, you know, it's so much fun. That's what I didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be fun. You know, it was done out of what I thought necessity at the time. Now, on the weekends, I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do Monday? We've got these units coming in. We got these things to work through, and we need to get these units all dialed in the way they should be. And then you're thinking about opportunities to make the products better for what we're getting from our vendors and on and on and on. And then it all ties together with a great big sense of gratification.
Yeah.
When it all comes together and you say, hey, that is a unit.
Yeah.
That this customer is going to enjoy. It's, you know, it's fitting tight, everything in it's tight and it's right. It's done right. And I know it was done right.
Yeah. Is that what really drives you at this point in your career?
It does. Yeah.
Gratification of
the gratification.
of a happy owner.
It's better than happiness.
That's fantastic. Papa Bob, when it comes to quality, what sage advice can you give us?
Well, you know, we can do all the mechanics that it takes, but we got to have good people.
Yeah.
And I think Tiffin Motorhomes have the best employees that we've ever had now.
Yeah.
And, you know, they care.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. You know, Van said on that too, but we have to have good people to work. And I think, you know, the last several years since we've had some challenges, business has been up and down. I think we've got really good folks here working and they care.
I agree completely. Yeah. A very stable, long tenured core group that care. That's hard to overstate. I mean, you mentioned a minute ago, Dad, it's a hand-built product. That does present some unique challenges because humans aren't perfect, right?
Exactly. And you know, what one person perceives as okay may not be what the customer perceives as okay.
Yeah.
So you're always training and elevating people to a higher level and that, hey, you know, it's not okay. We're looking for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
Now, we may not ever get everything perfect, but that's the final goal.
Sure.
Is to get the, you know, wiring presentation better. Well, hey, you know, wiring presentation may not have anything to do with an electronic working. Or, you know, don't just worry about hooking things up.
Yeah.
Let's make it look nice while we do it. Let's make it look like somebody cared.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to do. And that's perceived as quality as well, whether it works or not. Obviously, the first step in quality is to have everything functioning correctly. But then the next step, it just goes on and it gets more finite as you go up in it.
Yeah. Yeah. The bar can always be raised, right? Trent, anything come to mind for you on the topic of quality as we're sitting here talking?
I mean, to have great quality, I think it's going to start with the design is correct. The design is simple. It's easy for the men and women to put everything together. But then what Pop Bob said, you got to have good vendors. If you're buying not very good level products, they're not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find the right vendors for everything that we do, because in the world that we're in, there's not a vendor making everything we use for daily parts. And so I think if you can combine those two things, and then with our core group of people here, and they take pride in what they do, you're going to have the best shot that way.
Totally agree. We talk a lot about being customer driven. It's one of our core values here. We talk a lot about creating customers for life, but I think we can all agree you can't deliver on that with a lousy product, and that's why quality is so important. I mean, you got to really put a great product out there in order to deliver those customer expectations.